Hello, Jan.
Hello, Shamim. How do you
Yeah,
pronounce your name? I have to ask you.
Shamim.
Shamim. Okay, good.
Shamim, yes. And you are Jan. Jan with a Jan. And
Jan, yes.
Jan. Swedish, correct?
Yes, Swedish, yes. Mm.
Swedish. And you're from Stockholm?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I was there 2017 for like few days. I remember it's a beautiful country.
Hmm.
I was headed to the airport from the city and I had to take a train to the airport, and I had two bags with me. One had my laptop and one had my camera. So I sort of fell asleep and I left my camera on the train. So that's one of my memories, besides all the good
Mm.
memories I had in Stockholm. Beautiful, beautiful architecture.
So did you
And
lose your camera or did you get it
I
back?
lost my
Or
camera. I lost
oh
my
God,
camera.
I'm sorry.
I did not
Yeah,
have time to go
go
back.
back. I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Right now we have minus 15 or 20, minus 20 Celsius here, so it's kind of cold. We have a real winter.
yes, yes, that's what I've heard about Scandinavian countries.
So I was skiing today before we met. So
Oh, okay.
mm.
What's the time there now? It's around
it, 4 in
5.
the afternoon. 4 in the afternoon. So yeah.
Got it. Got it.
Okay.
So, Jan, you are a seventh, correct me if I'm wrong, a seventh Dan Aikikai. Is that what they say? Or
Hmm.
there's a terminology in terms of your status in your practice of Aikido. I hope I pronounce it properly.
Hmm.
Um, I know very little about the art.
Mm.
I've seen it in movies and on videos, and I've seen like from my research, what I've heard is it talks about the softness and the peaceful, the peace element within a warrior.
Mm.
Um, so please, can you enlighten me of what Aikido is, its origins, and what drew you into studying this form?
Well, first, I've done Aikido for next year. It'll be 50 years. So I started when I was a child, and Aikido is we don't have any competition in Aikido. It's an art where we practice to refine our movements and cultivate certain qualities, which is connected to self-defense. But we are not the main purpose of our training is not to fight or be in a fight like that. It's I would say much more a cultivation of qualities, how to stay calm, how to breathe, and how to move in a good and relaxed way, how to use the power from the person attacking you and without hurting this person or yourself, and the conflict. So there's a very strong philosophical aspect of Aikido, which comes from the founder of Aikido, Ushiba, Mohere Ushiba. So we call him O-sensei, and it means great teacher. And he was the founder of Aikido. He died in 1969. So he was very spiritual and philosophical. So I think most Aikido people are very connected to this philosophical and spiritual part of Aikido, where you should not hurt other people, not get injured, of course, and actually end the conflict itself. That's for me, the purpose of our training. It's very difficult, honestly, to quickly explain Aikido. It's a physical art, but it's much more. It's really connected to your mind, your body, your spirituality, and many other things. So I think for many people, Aikido is a great inspiration in their lives and how to solve conflicts, how to behave to other people, and so on.
Mhm. It's how it's you're talking about how the skill and the philosophy from practicing Aikido translates into real life, into other situations. That
Absolutely.
is a that is a really, really powerful element of any practice. And you also you are a student of Qigong and Tai Chi.
Mhm.
And how does your practice of Aikido connect with these practices? What is like the common thread between them?
Well, I will say that I started Aikido when I was 11, and when I was like uh, 14, 15, I met Ichimura Sensei, who was the Japanese Aikido teacher in Sweden at that time. And he was an Aikido teacher and shiatsu practitioner, acupuncturist, and a healer. And I saw him when I was a child, and later on I realized today I work with the same thing as he does. So the healing path of traditional medicine and qigong and aikido is very, very related, because it's healing, but it's also an act of purification. Sometimes I could relate to aikido as a mantra. Some
Mhm,
people say, "Oh, does aikido really work?" For me, it's more interesting what happens to myself when I practice aikido. So for me, the mantra in aikido is a purification of negativity. So if somebody attacks me, it's very easy to become negative or come into a survival mood. And by repeating that pattern of transforming negativity into something creative, it's a purification process for mind and body and soul. So this is much more important to me than if I can beat somebody in the street or not. So this mantra, repeated action of transforming negativity into creativity, is for me very much related to the healing arts. You want to heal what is broken, and this is what we do in Aikido, in Qigong, in acupuncture, Shiatsu, whatever.
mhm. Beautifully said. Um, does When you are embodying the practice of Aikido, do you also are aware of your internal energies as you practice, as you flow? Is it an element where you need to be aware of, say, breathing or a movement of chi, or it's more of an external flow like Tai Chi?
For me today, I cannot do Aikido without the internal awareness. And I would say they're equally important, because I can do an external movement, but what happens inside me is equally important. Today, I don't have any boundaries between these when I do Aikido. It's more and more becoming one, because I cannot honestly do a pure movement if my mind is not pure. If I haven't changed my mind, I cannot do the movement I want to do.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I would say the awareness is, I don't say 50-50 because it's the wrong image, but the awareness is definitely, it's like you're observing inside, you're observing outside at the same time when we're doing this. So that's also part of the mantra in Aikido, the training, to be able to act in the world and at the same time have a connection to what is happening inside you.
Many a times, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, please, please.
Yeah, many a times by we, including me, lose connection to what's going on internally. Even, and I think a movement practice helps me sort of dive in versus, one can jump into pure meditation or one can also integrate certain movement practices and then uh, finally flow into a meditative practice. Um, so that's sort of, I have not fully cultivated the art of slowing down my mind. It still has its own.
Yeah, no, I think most people don't have. Me too. I lose my mind constantly, not constantly, but often. But the important thing is to have some practice to come back. You know, there's for me. I'm not perfect, but I try to come back. Catch myself and restore my harmony. And as you say, there are many practices where you can, for example, you sit and you meditate, and then maybe you go out running or you do other things and you go to your busy life and you come home and you relax in your yoga mat. The fascinating thing with Aikido is that while 5 people are attacking you, you try to observe yourself inside. You try to observe your breathing, your stillness inside, and you try to move with your inside and your outside in harmony with these 5 people attacking you. And this is not something you master in 1 week. It's something you repeat over and over again. What happens when the world is difficult? How do I relate? How do I keep my inner stillness in this? And as I said, it's nothing you learn. It's a mantra that is repeated and helps you to continue to come back to that quality. So once somebody asked me, oh, so you Aikido people, you're perfectly balanced all the time. And I said, no, no, no. But I have some tools, I have some tools, I have some awareness to catch myself and come back and restore the harmony inside and outside. So a person, I was just in South Africa and I visited Robben Island, and a person for me he's passed away now, but who was an Aikido master without practicing Aikido is Nelson Mandela. I think he was able, as far as I understand, to keep his inner calmness and act in the world with harmony and grace. Without losing himself, he was able to blend with other people in a fantastic way. So for me, he's an Aikidoka in the world. So he shows these qualities of inner stillness and ability to act in the world, which fascinates me, to do this.
Mm. Someone who embodies the core philosophy and principles of Aikido.
Absolutely, you know,
Mm. Mhm.
absolutely.
Yes, as myself, like reflecting on my own journey, I have become more still and more self-reflective. The person I was 5, 6 years ago when I took in some of the practices
Hmm.
versus I was back then. At least having some form of embodiment practice, some form of movement practice,
Mm.
some form of breath and coordination and self-reflection is it's a great tool for, especially if you want to thrive in this modern world where you don't know what might hit you. It could be
No.
something physical, it could be words, it could be events.
So we can be sure the world will challenge us, and it's a constant process of keeping that stillness. But I don't want to disconnect from the world because it's difficult. I want to be in the world, even though it's difficult. But I want to keep my harmony, and this is sometimes a challenge. So yes, it's a never-ending process. I had long time ago. I had a yoga teacher, and his name was Yanakananda, and he said, when it comes to yoga, it's not the quantity that is important. It's not even the quality. It's the continuity that is important. That you repeat your practice month after year after year after year, because that continuity will polish your soul, will polish your mind, your body. And it's a never ending process. And this is for me what we do in Aikido. We are repeating this mantra of creating harmony inside and outside, staying in the world and still being with ourselves.
Mhm. Let's talk about the how about this? Let's talk about the evolution of Aikido. How
Mm,
and how
mm.
did it arrange from? Was the founder, was he a
Mhm.
martial artist in the past, and he has sort of found a difference? He wanted to give the world something different. What is the origin story?
Well, yeah, I mean, there we could spend a couple of hours talking about that. But if I try to make it short, I mean, he studied traditional martial arts. And the traditional martial arts in Japan are somehow, they have, of course, some spiritual aspect, but they were also strongly survival arts, you know. The samurais, they needed to survive. So the martial arts he studied, as I understand it, was Daitoryu, which is also an origin of Aikido. These arts were much more practical, much more focused on survival. So the founder, he took these traditional, more hardcore arts and transformed them into something that he called Aikido, which is more focused on creating harmony than fighting and killing. So I want to tell you a dream that I had many years ago. I lived several years in Japan and studied. I have my Japanese Aikido teacher, Endo Shihan, in Japan. He's now 82 years old, or soon. Anyway, I lived many years in Japan, and now I live in Sweden, of course. But some years ago, I had this dream. I was walking in Japan in old times, and I was in the marketplace, and I saw this big Buddhist bell standing on this little cushion. And I stopped and I looked at it, and the guy in this little place, he said, "Yeah, you can try to hit the bell if you like." So I took the stick and I hit the bell, and the sound was incredible. I could feel, and I saw the sound went all the way to Mount Fuji, you know, far away. It's like, you know, in Japan, everybody thinks about Mount Fuji all the time. So I said to him, "What a fantastic sound, and what a fantastic bell. What kind of bell is it?" Or he said, "It's a Buddhistic peace bell. Every time you bring it, it brings harmony and peace to the world."
Mhm.
And I said, "That's fantastic. What is it made from?" And he said, "You can turn it around and see." So I turned the bell upside down, and it was a samurai helmet.
Mm.
And when I woke up, I thought, wow, that's Aikido for me. Because Aikido comes from the hardcore samurai tradition somehow, you know? And using that power of the warrior to turn it into peace. And for me, that dream, that bell, become a symbol of what we are trying to do with Aikido. We're trying to catch that fighting spirit and turn it into something peaceful. So does it make sense to you, or?
Yes, yes. First of all, that was a really beautiful dream. Yeah, very metaphorical. Um, mhm. It's the warrior and the saint. How do you combine the both of them and embody into one being, sort of?
Because the warrior, the quality of the warrior, you know, the quality you want to cultivate might be awareness, sharpness, ability to concentrate and focus in one moment, you know. But there are many beautiful qualities in the warrior, uh, and transforming them to fight for the good. That is what we have to do inside ourselves also. I think everybody has a warrior, you know. You can deny it, but I think most people have a warrior. Uh, we shouldn't get rid of the warrior, but the warrior should work for the heart. You know, the warrior should work for a good purpose. So all these qualities in the warrior is very useful. It's very important, and we all have a warrior, and sometimes it's really needed to concentrate in that way, but to do it for a good purpose.
Something interesting, another teacher of mine once mentioned was, um, back in the days, our ancestors, there was a lot of pillaging and fighting and taking over, most of them in the survival mode. So what he said was, those times the warrior were sort of not connected to their heart. It was more of a primal, low-driven, animalistic
Yeah.
drive. So that part, the heart was missing.
Hmm.
And with time, there was this change of the inner being. Um, and so a fully embodied, so a call for embodiment of the individual, of knowing when to sort of cultivate the warrior within for inner harmony that translates to outer harmony. But what is the responsibility of the warrior when, let's say he is in actual immediate danger? Um, can he move from the harmonious side to the savage side? Or, like you said, when he's in the savage mode, he also has to be tapped into the harmony as well. What are your thoughts on this?
You know, it's a very complex question. So there are thousands of situations. We cannot answer all these different situations. But I have a friend who has worked a lot with military training, and he's an Aikido teacher.
Hmm.
And I asked him, so what did you teach the soldiers? And these are really, top soldier people. And he said, well, I was the one who taught them to stop shooting, because a good soldier needs to be able to stop shooting. The other people in the education taught the soldiers how to shoot. But the very good soldier also needs to take a deep breath, look at the situation, and say, now it's not the time to shoot. So, of course, this is an extreme situation. But I think there are situations where if you don't train yourself in the middle of a very difficult situation, you might just act from your very raw um, survival instinct.
Hmm.
So what we do in Aikido is, if you look at the chakras, I would say that we are opening these, that your mind, your thoughts, your heart, and your survival instincts become one and act together. And they take a decision together in the situation. So, of course, this is a dream, but this is what I look for, that my instincts and my heart and my mind can work together. And then I cannot say, there might be a very difficult situation where I have to be very hard, to save some people, or save myself. I don't know. But there might be another situation where you can act more from your heart with the power of the warrior, you know? So every situation is unique. But if there is a communication inside on all levels, we can take a much richer decision in difficult questions, in difficult situations.
Hmm. Thank you for sharing that. That is, um, yeah, I mean, I have personally had encounters where, I was in a situation where I was very vulnerable, and that led me to begin training in Muay Thai. So that is the only external fighting form that I practice. Um, they don't, yes, there is an element of stillness, but it's a lot of the time it's mostly external. And I'm at a place where I'm trying to see if I can bring the inner harmony while also being grounded and have the ability to cultivate power in the moment,
Yeah,
you know. So that is a personal challenge that I'm working on.
yeah. So I know some people that have been in difficult situations and they feel weak. Maybe first they want to learn to fight, to fight to defend themselves, and this is natural. If you have been in a difficult situation, you want to kick and punch and do all kinds of things. So that's fine, because first you have to catch your warrior. But if you want to move on, you also want to discipline your warrior, and you want to connect your warrior to your heart and your mind.
Hmm.
And then, in my opinion, you're evolving, you're reaching a higher level of being the warrior with the connection to your heart and your mind, where you don't always. I mean, the dream we always say in Aikido is that we never have to use Aikido. I mean, physically, because you are in the right place and the right moment, and you say the right things, so that there will be no conflict. Of course, this is a dream, but this is, we don't look for a fight to prove ourselves. We look to solve the fight before it has even started. But like you say, you have to get to know your warrior, and for some people, it's very important to find some more hard martial art first to
Hmm.
get to know your warrior, because you need to find it. you know. So
Hmm. And what about the healing aspect of your journey? I know you practice um, different forms of energetic healing. I believe it's one of them is shiatsu. Um, you do Reiki as well.
mhm.
Um,
Acupuncture
Acupuncture.
and
Something so
qigong.
it's
Yeah, yeah.
qigong.
Hmm.
So can you briefly talk about these aspects of, what is it that you are healing in an individual, and and basically the subtle nature of it. I know it could be a huge topic, but maybe give like
Mhm.
a brief overview on these
Well,
traditional healing methods.
first of all, I'm not a healer,
Mhm.
because it's not me healing anyone. I'm a servant for healing energy, coming through. So all I can do is to be a servant, and what you can do is to open the possibilities for the healing. And there are different tools to do that: acupuncture, shiatsu, qigong, reiki. There are different tools to open the flow for the healing process. And then, of course, the receiver have to be also somehow open. I don't say the receiver has to believe, because I had many clients who did not believe in what I was doing, and still they got healed. So you don't have to believe, but you have to be open. And what to say open, it's difficult to say how to explain that, but there are sometimes, I would say, some people invest in their problems. you know, becomes a part of their identity. And even though they say they want to be healed, maybe they don't want, because it's a part of their identity. And then it's difficult to heal them. Um, but you don't have to believe. You just have to have an open mind and want to to be healed. You know. Then, of course, we cannot heal everything with the acupuncture. You know, if you or whatever. It's I'm completely fine with, you know, if you break your leg, you go to the hospital and they have to fix your leg. But after the operation, uh, these traditional arts are fantastic, you know. So as preventive medicine and after an incident like that, you can do a lot with the healing arts. But of course, sometimes you need to go to the hospital to have a to fix things in an emergency situation or have an operation, whatever.
And the core of the the way of the healing arts is to uh, manipulate or uh, unblock certain blocks that has arisen within the system, or the meridians in the body, the chakras. Is that sort of like the underpinning or the core uh, foundation?
Well, uh, I would say this, you know, this could be an hours of talk, you know, but to make try to make it simple. Yes, in the mind and the body there are blockages for being healed. Otherwise, we would be healthy. I mean, somehow I think when we are healthy, which we normally don't think about because we think that it's normal to be healthy, but actually it's kind of fantastic to be healthy. And to be healthy means the flow is open. The flow in your mind, the flow in your body, the flow in your meridians, in your chakras, in your organs is open. And usually when we are ill, there's some kind of cut or break or blockage in this flow. Um, and then we need to remove the block or heal what is not working together so that the flow can be restored, you know. And the flow, it sounds uh, like a general term, but I would say there are flow on many levels. There are flow on liquid in the body, you know, different liquids we have, but there's also a flow of chi, of energy,
Mhm,
and the levels of energy, you know, the chakra system is very, for me, a high vibration, you know. The meridians are more raw in their vibration, which means that you can use a needle or a pressure on the meridians to open up the flow in the meridians, but you don't put a needle in the chakra, you know. So the chakra energy is in a more subtle vibration, while the meridian system is on a more raw energetical level. That's why you can affect it with physical tools.
mhm,
So in the energetical world, there are also levels of energy. Like in the body, physical body, you have the blood, you have the other fluids, you have the bones, you have the different levels of vibration, you know, more dense and more light, you know. So on the energetical level, that's the same. And different healing arts focus on different energy levels of the body, of different energetical levels. And some focus on the very physical structure, like the bones or the organs, you know. So that's why it's not so interesting to compare different healing arts, because usually every healing art is focused on a certain level of the body mind system, you know. So a heart surgeon would not try to fix your brain, you know.
you're back.
You're back. I'm back. Okay,
Yes.
now my AirPods. Yes. Are they here?
Can you hear me?
I don't know. Can you hear me? Yeah, I hear you, but from the computer. So let's
Yeah, I
see if
think you
I
need to
can. I think you
connect
need to connect
your
your.
Bluetooth. I can maybe check the
Oh,
AirPods.
now they're back. Okay,
Yeah, yes, I
I
can
hear
hear
you
you.
again. So when you try to compare different healing arts, it's like comparing an electrician with a plumber. You know, you call an electrician when you need have problems with your electricity, but you call a plumber when you have problems with your water. You know, and it's the same in the mind body system. You know, all these arts have a specific area of where they work.
Since you mentioned, thank you for the thorough description of the different layers. It's really good to know on what level. It's good to bring awareness to the different levels available to us. But since you mentioned the word electricity, because I have been fascinated with like a form of healing is through the electrical potential generated within the body in
Mm,
certain forms of qigong, neigong,
mm,
and there are different masters in the world that can manipulate that energy,
yes.
um, make it alive. What are your thoughts on that layer? Is yeah.
I think it's incredibly important, and I think it's has been neglected, by physicians. They're looking at the biological structure of the body, but there's a lot of processes are connected to electrical impulses. The heart is beating because of electrical impulses. We have electrical impulses in the brain. The whole system, there are different impulses, electrical impulses, and this modern science have just started to look at. And I think in the coming 10 years, we will be able to explain much more why acupuncture, why qigong, neigong, all these things work so strongly, why they have such a health effects on the body, because many of them they're working on this electrical level. I mean, and this is very close to the chi. The chi level and the electrical level is very interlinked. So I think what you say there is incredibly interesting and important. And I think we're just beginning to look at these things.
Mhm. And
I can
also,
just say from my own personal experience, I know I come to the Aikido dojo and my mind is not clear, my body is tired, and then I train for an hour. And then when I walk away, every time I feel like a completely different person. My thoughts are clear, my body is vigorated. I think, what happened? In this 1 hour, I changed completely. How is it possible? It's the same with qigong. So I'm convinced that there must be a lot going on there that modern science has not yet explained. Mostly because we hadn't the tools for researching these things, but we are coming closer to that, I think. I would like to measure a person before a qigong lesson and after a qigong lesson, or before an aikido lesson and after a aikido lesson, and see that there must be something going on, because it's the same. My physical body is basically the same before the class and after the class, 1 hour. It hasn't changed much, my biological body, but my energetical body is in another world. And how do we measure that? I feel it every time, but there's no doctor that can tell me what's going on. you know
absolutely. It's a different perception, as if you have entered a new reality. Um, and the way I found you was basically, so I've been doing some research on Neigong and the through that, I have started a practice with a teacher. Uh, I'm very, it's hard for me to pronounce it. In my last podcast, I had the David Verdesi was my host. He had to help me pronounce it. It's called Shin Sen Zhuang. Is the, can you help me pronounce it again?
Qing Cheng Shuang.
Qin Chen Shuang. So that's
Yeah.
how I think you led or you thought this in in a conference, an online conference somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen that version of yet, but that
Mm-hmm.
is something I practice.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's not the same as yours. So what I found was like I do my morning practices include a bit of hatha yoga,
Mm-hmm.
just to open up the thing, and then I do some kriya yoga, which is just pure moving the breath through the channels. But then the day I started practicing this, it's been just 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel it's totally different. I feel there is something, different channels or different forms of energy open up, a different perception of, more grounded. I feel more strong. I have more energy during my Muay Thai practice, even
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
the 30 to 40 minutes of practice, and it's really really powerful the way you are bringing it up right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, so it's also a great segue to move into maybe what you feel about
Yeah.
this version.
So first, I want to say there are many, many fantastic practices, all around the world, and from the deep traditions. You have to find what tunes into you, and maybe what tunes into you right now in your life can be different from in the future. But something that the Qing Sheng Shuang, as I say, I agree, it's an incredibly powerful practice. Of course, there are many other practices also, but something that I think we can just think a little bit about: where do these traditions come from? You know, there was a culture, but also a climate, and this is very connected. So, for example, if a form of tradition comes from a very hot climate, it's usually related to that climate, and it's a lot about opening the flow. My Qin Shuang teacher, Professor Wang, he came from Manchuria, and he said where he lived, they used to do Qin Shuang in the winter and in the summer. And in Manchuria, in the summer, it was plus 40 Celsius, and in the winter, it was minus 40 Celsius.
Mm,
And they did the training outside all the time. And to do a form in minus 40 degrees Celsius is very different from doing it in south of India. So you cannot completely take away the tradition from the climate and the culture it's coming from. And personally, I did yoga for many years, and I do yoga sometimes, but for me, I mostly do it in the summer. Now we have minus 15 to 20 in Sweden, so my body is holding the energy because it's cold. I feel like I don't want to open now because I don't want to lose my heat. So I'm choosing practices which is adapted to a cold climate. For example, the Xin Sheng Shuang practice, which you can do standing outdoors in a cold climate. And if I'm in the summer or it's warm, I might choose some other practice. So for me, that's an important part because sometimes people just say, "Oh, I will do this and that," but have you thought about where it's coming from? Where, which climate zone you're. So of course, all of these are very good, but they're coming from a context. You understand what I mean with the
mhm,
culture and the climate. And of course, we can adapt it and change it a little bit, but you cannot ignore the origins of what you practice,
mm.
and to be a little sensitive to that.
Thank you for sharing that. Mm. And what is the so at this moment in time, what's happening in your life? What are you? You are a full-time teacher of Aikido and a practitioner. Um, are you? Where are you right now, and what is? Do you have a certain goal in mind with your practice? Maybe sharing it with you know, opening up the practice to other people, or bringing more awareness, um, or more traveling, or maybe exploring other forms. Where are you right now? What's happening? I'm just curious.
Well, for me, I'm constantly researching and I'm constantly curious. I never I have some things I do for a long, long, long time, but I'm always researching and changing and looking into what I'm doing. So it's a constant process. But I also have felt lately that there's a lot of problem now in the world. And of course, there has always been, but right now it feels very intense. And I feel what do I want to share, and what do I want to do for myself. And I think stillness and joy are two qualities I want to emphasize a lot in my teaching, to find stillness and joy. Uh, and and like Bishop Tutu said, that happiness is different from joy, because happiness is something that happens to you. Something happens and you become happy. But
Mhm,
joy is something you cultivate. It's a choice. You cultivate it from inside over a long time. And joy can include all feelings. You can be sad and joyful. But if you're happy, you're just happy. So
mhm,
I thought a lot about that there's something about the joy and the calmness and the stillness that I want to share with people, because I think it's needed more than ever. And I actually need it myself when I read the news. I need a quality of stillness and a quality of joy. So at the same time as I care about the world and I listen to the news, I want to hold these qualities, and I want to help other people hold these qualities when we are still connected to the world and what's going on. So if that's an answer to your question, that feels very, very important to me right now.
mhm, mhm. Thank you. Yeah, it's part of me also feels when I practice, and at least I'm lucky, or little privileged to feel that sense of joy through practice on following the line of continuity that you described.
Mm,
Part of me uh, wishes that people who don't have access um, to these tools also know or embody or have a glimpse of what I'm feeling, or that there are certain tools, whenever the world is, whatever happening, you can always turn back to your mind and your body and sit in calmness. It's also a wish of mine. And I think
mm,
um, that's what I think great teachers, that's one of the things I've seen in great teachers and practitioners, that they want to share their the beauty that they feel. Um, I know we covered a lot of topics, spirituality, a bit of healing. Um, there is one topic that is I'm super dear to me, is a human potential, and what I've seen with all these practices is, whatever your purpose may be, it could be health, well-being, spirituality, maybe enlightenment. But at the end of the day, it nurtures the human potential, the drive, especially, as in today's world, it could be a man or a woman doing a lot of things. He might have been an office job. He could be a carpenter, could be a fireman. But you need a certain sense of, you know, energy, a drive to build that focus, to build that stamina, to build that calmness and harmony. Because when you wake up, 8 hours of sleep, 7 hours of sleep, sometimes 5 hours of sleep, you don't know what position your body was in. Um, you don't know. I mean, right now they have, they've made beds that can control the temperature. So a lot of influences that you are not, and then you wake, like, where am I? Where is my first thought? My phone. I'm feeling a bit tired. I'm running after coffee, running after job. A lot of people don't have a routine. And in my journey, it was, sort of how do you build that routine? But it was all geared towards how do I nurture my potential so I can be the best in. I discovered, meditation, form of breath work, embodiment. So if if this is something very dear to me, so I want you to sort of highlight what do you think someone who is starting, very brand new, someone maybe who's listening to this podcast, who's been very curious but does not have the right tools. How do they start? What do you suggest to them to, have that new reality, have that new perception so that they can be the best version of themselves?
Well, you have to find something that works for you. It sounds like a cliche, but it's very true. And then don't overdo it. You know, continuity. If you can find a practice that you can keep for weeks, months, it's more important than doing a lot for 3 weeks and then quitting. Uh, they say we usually overestimate what we can do in one day, but we usually underestimate what we can do in 1 year. If you find a practice, something for your mind, your body, and you do it for a year and you see what happens. Maybe it's just 15 minutes a day, but if you do it for a whole year, it will become very, very powerful. So, continuity, find something that you can hang on to, that works for you, and that you can do actually every day for a year. And then you will see something has changed. Usually, people don't do anything or they overdo it and then they quit. So, I think this finding something, uh, like for example, I have this, if you want to do one physical exercise, I have some clients, they have problems with their body, they never exercise anything. So I give them this: go to the gym and do the rowing thing for 20 minutes once a week. And every time you do it, you send me a text message.
Hmm.
And you go on into the gym and you do it, and you go out of the gym and send me a message. And then after a month, I say, okay, let's do it twice a week. And most of these clients I have, they succeed. And they tell me, Jan, this is the first time I have used my gym card, because they buy this gym card and then they do it for 2 days and then they quit. But just go in, do one exercise, take a shower, and go home, and then you want to do more, but the only thing you have to do is that, and that's very, very important. It goes for meditation, for whatever. Find something that is reasonable that you can do for a year, and do it for a year, and you will see a change in your life. And then everything you do extra is just plus, you know and your potential. I mean, when I started to meditate, I was in school. I was a kid. I was maybe 16 or something. I started to do meditation every morning for half an hour, and my grades just exploded. And the teacher said, "What happened to you, Jan? Now you raised your level in everything." And the only thing I did 30 minutes of meditation in the mornings every time before I went to school. And I kept it for a year, and my grades just went up. I didn't try to become better. I just became better because I kept this thing. So yes, find something that you manage and do it for a year and keep the continuity, but don't overdo it.
Mhm. Finding the right balance.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you for sharing that. Um, um, and one more thing I'm also curious about is, since I love exploring different cultures, different traditions, and long before when humans, our ancestors, they were really, really connected to nature
Mm,
versus right now. Um, Talk about maybe Japan, the Shinto Buddhism, the different forms of shamanism,
mm.
South America, Siberia. Um, what are your thoughts on that? And certain cultures use um, different forms to enter different stages of or different states of consciousness for healing, for accessing knowledge, and transmitting it to the world. And you are, I mean, even in your ancestry, the Vikings and their gods and beliefs and things like that, has that ever impacted you? Have you see sort of um, a blend into the different arts that we study?
Absolutely. I mean, I went to see a lot of shamanic people. I went to Peru, and I went to, in, different cultures. I've always been deeply interested in this, but I will never call myself a shaman. But I, I think in the end, I think, of course, you can develop a very special ability to connect to nature deeply, like some of these shamanic people do. But I think the most important is for many people to just be in the nature regularly. So of course there are so many levels of connection to nature, but I'm a little bit afraid now when many people live more and more in cities and are disconnected from the nature. How many people look at the sky regularly and see the stars because there's too much light around, light pollution. So when we don't see the night sky anymore, do we know that we are on a planet in the universe, flying through universe? You know. So I think on a very simple level, I think go as often as we can to nature. Be in the nature, and then there are many many levels of exploring. Like you call shamanic traditions or whatever. And something I like about Japan, it's a it's a country of how do you say, contradictions.
Mm,
There's things I really don't like in Japan, and there are things I really love in Japan. The things I really like is that in the language, in the culture, there is a strong presence of connection to energy and to the nature. There are many words, and so that talks about like ki and hara, and if you're sick, you say, how is your ki? My ki is bad. My energy is bad. That's the way to say I'm sick. Byoki. Genki means my ki is fine. My energy is fine. So in the Japanese language, there are words that are talking about energy and spirits and nature in a very natural way. So these things about Japan, I'm really fascinated about, that they have there is a strong presence of connection to the natural world in Japan. And I can see it here too in Scandinavia. I think many Scandinavian people really love nature. You know, we go a lot into the nature to restore ourselves. It's a very common practice. So yes, I think it's a very important thing, and I'm sometimes a bit concerned that people are losing this and not being in nature enough.
Hmm. I just realized I did something funny. As soon as we
Ah,
spoke about nature, I tried to bring in like a small natural
a
park
plant in
in
there.
this
Yeah, it's
room. This,
beautiful. Yeah, 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 yeah. Plants.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Yes. Yeah, Japan is something I would love to explore more deeper. I've been fascinated with its history, its culture. A few months ago, I've read. I think the book is called The Five Rings by
Hmm.
Miyamoto Musashi.
Musashi. Yes.
Musashi. He's also talks about how he was a warrior saint, and at the end of his life, he retreated into a cave to write. Um,
Yeah. He became some kind of monk and pottery master in the end. I mean, he looking at this dream I said in the beginning of the samurai helmet turning
mhm,
into a Buddhist bell. Miyamoto Musashi manifests this, of being a warrior saint. I wouldn't call it a saint, but a warrior, incredible warrior. He won all these duels. He must have been fantastic. And at some point in his life, he changed completely and said, "I'm not fighting anymore. I want to cultivate myself." So he embodies a little bit that journey that fascinates me about martial arts. How to transform that power into something that creates harmony and peace and love in the world.
mm, mm. Thank you very much for sharing your wisdom, your stories, your journey. You have, I know we spoke about different topics, and each topic deserves its own little segue because
Hmm.
is there, um, before we come to, I mean, end our chat today, is there anything else that, I might have missed that you'd like to share?
I'm thinking, I'm feeling. Well, just adding something to this, all these many of these arts, like nature can also help with this, but
Hmm,
uh, integration of all the levels, and integration of the world. Of course, we're coming closer to each other if we want or not want, but it's the world is being integrated, but also integration in ourselves. But I already talked about it, but this, sometimes people sit in front of their computer and then they go to the gym or they go running, and then they talk about their emotions somewhere, they get drunk. And but how do we integrate ourselves, that there are not walls between our different worlds? How we integrate our whole system, because we are so much. And I think you talk about potential. A key to opening up our potential is to integrate. all our systems. So that's what comes to my mind is integration, and that the the modern technical society sometimes make us disintegrate.
Hmm.
We develop very strongly in one direction, and then we're completely underdeveloped in another direction, and this is not healthy. um, we need to work with our weaknesses. We need to work with the things that are not so developed, to become more whole beings, I think, and a more whole world, So we're also integrating the world together. And then we have to work with the weakness of the world to integrate.
Hmm. That's it's really profound. Inner integration, outer integration.
Yes, internal, external integration. Yeah.
Mhm. Because we are always experiencing moment to moment. Um, yeah, it's something I am trying to learn. Yeah, thank you so much, Jan. It's been eye-opening conversation. Um, I hope to see you, hopefully meet with you someday and practice with you, learn from you, and hopefully this is beginning of our conversation. And thank you so much, Jan. Really,
Thank you,
really,
Shamim. And thank you for doing this interview and taking this time and this effort. So I wish you also the best in your journey, finding your truth and your path.
yeah, thank you.
So thank you.